Hey, Donald, you there?
Yeah, man, what you up to today?
Well, I wanted to follow back up. We've been having offline conversations about Delphi. And, of course, this is such an immensely important case right now. I think if you're a parent living in the United States of America, specifically anywhere in the center of it, whether it be north or south or wherever, this is a huge case. I mean, this is, you hear all this stuff in our popular culture about, QAnon and all these different things and these child pedophile rings and stuff. And that's just, that's where this case, seems to be going, But, and I started thinking about what all this case means in the context of where we're at now. And when I went back and I listened to our conversation and, we received some great input from people. And I just wanted to come back a little bit and just say, look, just put some things in context. It's like when you're trying to explain this case or any case or anything, whatever it is, you have to build. And you're going to leave out some things. There's going to be all kinds of context missing. I remember one thing that we were talking about, and, you and I spoke about it offline, which is you said, wow, man, you really got into this murder or whatever. It was like, it sounded like, although, we talked about it, and it meant more, again, because of context type things, is that, I never have, and it made me think, because I thought about something, the way, just those words being twisted around is like, it made me think about something that I never thought about, which is the actual murder. There's not been a murder information shared, really, other than that we talked a little bit about Lee Kerr. There were some things suggesting knives were involved. And, of course, that's one of the theories. It would be quiet. Nobody could hear it. I could get it. But that's some sick shit, using a knife on little kids. And, of course, I never thought about the murder part. I jumped into it whenever I'm looking at it, and from what the cops are presenting to us, the law enforcement, everybody calls it, police, cops, whatever, colloquially. But it's more of a it's from the killer's perspective. They're trying to get you to identify the killer. They're not telling you about the murder scene. They're just saying these little girls were murdered by this dude. And this is what we can show you about him. This is the way he walks. This is the way he talks. This is, there's some signatures associated with the crime scene, although they haven't really released a lot of that. They said there were multiple. In fact, I was listening to the prosecutor, the former prosecutor for that county, or for that district, was talking about it and said there were several signatures. Now, do you know what's meant by a signature?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about from the standpoint of, the way they present the murders, they try to present it from a profiler standpoint, because they want people to identify things, well, like, how does this person think and whatever. And the signature, I'm assuming you're meaning is like, my custom, like, I was here, the old tagline, I was here. It's something that identifies you as part of the same serial killer regime that apparently they're following.
That's right. It could be that. It could be like, in fact, one potential person of interest, which I don't think he's a person of interest, but and he's like, well, you mean like cutting off someone's hair or something, taking a toe, if you're talking about it.
Right. Yeah, the signature thing. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that at all. It could be something like how sloppy they are. It could be, whatever. It could be it could be very minimal. It could be like something that a lot of people could use, but it's still something they use. So it could be very small and minute, and it provides a lot of evidence, or it could be huge.
Right. Well, that's where they go back to trying to differentiate between an actual serial killer and a copycat. The actual serial killer has a signature, as you say, and big or small. And, and they only know some of them details. They don't release all them details because, of course, only the killer would know them. So I understand them not doing it. I always try to look at it, and I don't do it often because I'm just an overthinker. I try to look at it from a profiling standpoint. It's like, okay, so what made this guy decide? I mean, if he was out of the blue, as, it's portrayed, what made this guy just one day walk across the thing like, oh, I see two girls, I'm going to do this. I try to look at it from that, and it's kind of sickening because you go, oh, damn. I mean, it carries you down some dark thoughts, But I guess if you're going to be honest and try to actually understand what made this happen and how can we catch this sick guy, you've got to follow through them, you know, and think about them. So that's kind of where I went with it. You almost got to live the murders from both sides to try to understand it enough to be of a benefit to it, in my opinion, you know.
Yeah, I keep the murder in my head an amorphous blob because I don't want to see it. But I do know what's at the end of it, you know. And the way I think of it is like with this, because I can't deal with that kind of stuff. I don't even like blood, period. But here's something that I know about a killer that can do what he did to these girls. I mean, this is not some guy that's never used a knife before. There was a knife involved. He's used a knife. He's used a knife to skin deer, to, you know, defend himself before, you know, to do all kinds of things. You don't just get good at using a knife real quick. I mean, you know, any kind of you'll wind up with cuts on your fingers. I mean, you'll get hurt if you don't know what you're doing with a knife. So one of the things that I would think of as a profile about this person is somebody that lives in a traditional fashion. In other words, they have to kill to eat in a lot of cases. And that goes back to my hiker theory, that person traveling across there. And another part of that is like, you know, they mentioned he's been local to Delphi. Of course, what does that mean? I mean, somebody could say that I'm local to Heber Springs, Arkansas, but I only go up there, you know, spend the night 4 or 5 times a year, but I know the area. I know the little haunts, you know. I'm not, so local is different to many people. You know, some people, local could be a whole district. It could be a tri-state region or whatever, depending on what area you're in. So local means a lot of different things. And, of course, I've heard a lot of people say that lived in more urban regions, like, oh, you know, they would have to be local to get through those woods and hills. I'm like, no. Again, if you're a woodsman, a hunter, or somebody that lives off-grid, you know, traversing through areas like that, a park area, is not going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. In fact, I could do it. I mean, I've been in the river bottoms that are nowhere near parks. And I feel like that, like, if you're a woods type person, I'm probably too light to do it. But to get through there are people that live in the woods. They go out there, they kill, they clean deer, you know. That's a different person. So I don't really see this as a townsperson. So, and what do you think about it? I mean, just what, in your mind, specific things. If you were profiling what you know about this case so far, what would you say about it? You know, from what you know, going to a rail bridge that's deserted, getting 2 little girls cornered, and bring them down the hill and kill them. What the hell do you see in that?
Well, I mean, I agree the term local is kind of a relative thing. Without knowing all the stuff that they have presented and whatever, the term local to me would say, because they haven't found any evidence of someone doing like you're talking about, just a woodsman that is not familiar with the area but is familiar with traipsing through the woods, had probably not known where the trails were to not leave as much evidence behind or something. You know, so maybe the term local was, you know, he knew how to move around where the trails were and those kind of things. Maybe that's what they mean. I do agree that, you know, that it could also be just someone that is just a woodsman. Exactly what you say. Someone that is used to, you know, hunting every now and then, just working with their hands, got a blue collar. I don't see this being a white collar city guy. Now I agree with that 100%. This is going to be someone of that nature, you know.
I think that one of the signs that they left there was a smoker. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard I think maybe even that same, I don't know how valid that Lee Kerr thing is, but it seemed like there was a cigarette butt mentioned there. But, and, you know, of course, I've been seeing a lot of cases they're talking about. In fact, there was another recently, a case that was solved by this ancestry type stuff. Now, that ancestry type stuff can identify people that are cousins or what have you, and, you know, that person may never have gotten into trouble before. And, of course, you know, there's another component to this. That's kind of like where I started this conversation with the QAnon stuff, you know, which is, I hate to mention that stuff because it's kind of political, whatever, but, you know, one of the big platforms of that is child pedophilia, or whatever the hell you call it, pedophile. and they're like at these advanced parts in government, and they're you know all this weird stuff. And then you hear it. It's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. On a lot of podcasts that talk about the Delphi murders, they're talking about it, the pedophilia angle. And I was like, in my mind, you don't have to have a pedophile to kill 13 and 14-year-old people. These are adults or close to it. I mean, they're not. I mean, they're as big as they'll ever be, probably. So I don't think that you'll have to have that component. But I did see where there was a child that goes missing every 40 seconds in the United States. What it doesn't say is that most of them are found, relatively quickly, and most of them are either runaways or picked up by a parent.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. There doesn't necessarily have to be a pedophile type dude. I mean, I think that's kind of a go-to for any adult in that situation. Take advantage of 13, 14-year-old adolescents. So that's probably just a go-to. But you're right. It doesn't have to be a component. It could be the guy was just angry, and that was who he could take the shit out on. We don't know what goes through some of these people's brains when these things happen. We try to understand it and put it in a rational, I guess, concept that we can get. But, man, sometimes crazy just crazy. Now, I don't think that's the case with this guy. I think he was methodical. He thought about it. And, again, going back to the type of person, you're talking about a local, whatever type person, I think he's just one of them folks who sit around and maybe kind of a loner, had some hard times, and they sit there and thought just dark crap. And finally, they saw the right opportunity to act, and they acted on it. And maybe that's why you don't see it again, type thing. It's one of them weird things. Well, why'd you do it? Well, I don't know why I did it. Well, that may be the damn truth, They don't say that. That don't degrade from the, how horrible the crime is by any shape, form, or fashion. But you have to think about that kind of thing if you want to find the person that did it.
That's right.
In my mind.
There's so many theories. And so many theories. Of course, I say the hiker theory. I don't know that. I mean, in fact, I wouldn't put my name on it. Well, I wouldn't say I wouldn't put money on it, But now, because there's some, we don't know. Like, if I've studied enough of these true crime type cases that sometimes totally not even the person anybody ever thought did it, So it's just so rare. You never know what all things that people have going on. I mean, there's, like I said, you talk to people. I've talked to people. In fact, I've looked back on the past where I had people working for me, and they were out making money, and then on the weekend that they were working for me, they got into a big trouble and got arrested and got sent to prison. Just that close to them, they were doing some pretty bad shit, and you would have never have suspected it from talking to these guys. But people snap, they get on drugs. I think drugs is probably a big part of it. I know that whole central part of the United States of America, basically every person of European descent has been on opioids at some point in time in the past, 10, 15 years. So, I mean, there's all kinds of drug things going on, and you hear about all of this crazy shit that people do when they're on meth and heroin mixed together. I mean, there's all kinds of angles to this thing for sure.
Oh, yeah, and the sad thing about it is, we discussed the why, and the why is an important thing, but, not as important as just catching the son of a bitch. The why, we want to know it. Yeah, we want the who. The why can come after the fact, but, the first thing is getting the who so that we can, hey, get some justice for the two children that were, slaughtered, that were just innocent. They were just out there being kids, walking on, probably texting on their phone, just giggling about the boy they like, and then this son of a bitch robbed that from them. So the who, to me, is the important side. The why is important, but not as important as the who. The why, he can just hang and just be over with, and I could go, I wonder why. Well, it don't matter if the son of a bitch is dead.
Yeah.
But,
Of course, on our back channel, I was like, I would like to be able to be one of the officers carrying him in, and I was thinking about a gun stock to the head about 5 times. But then again, you can't do that because you want justice here. I mean, and which is what you were saying. Of course, I was just expanding upon, like what I said earlier. It's like, man,
of course.
But then again, I know that you can't do that. But man, just like taking these little kids' lives, man, whoever it was. Now, there's other theories too. One of them I keep hearing about, and that I've heard about some, was this couple fighting under the bridge. Now, I think that maybe we should go to another episode to talk about that. But so let's look at that. I don't know. I think there's a lot to it. I think there's, I've heard that there's a guy. Maybe there wasn't a couple. Maybe he told different stories and such. But let's not even necessarily just aim at him. But let's talk about some persons of interest at another time. What do you think?
Yeah, man, that'd probably be better. Cause, hey, I don't know enough about it. I've glanced at it and just, it became interesting. We discussed it. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to get a little more detail so at least could be somewhat more intelligent about my comments. but it is an...
That's what I stated.
It is a very... Yeah, no, and it's totally fine because, again, the ignorant being presented the evidence might say something that somebody missed. I don't know. I'm not saying that we will, but hey, there's that off chance. So, hey, it was a great conversation, and we can explore more. I'd love to do that.
In my mind, I'm a little bit on the starfish side. I kind of like the mystical things. In my mind, if we're pushing this story out, if we are continuing to get this information out, to get this perp out, to get pictures of him, his voice, the story out there, those little girls' story out there, that there's enough vibe going on that the circle's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter around this guy, and we're going to get him. And that's what all of us want to do with this. It's about making that circle tighter around him and getting that son of a bitch taken out. That's my perspective. But I think, like I said, I want us to, do some other things and come back to it. But I enjoy us talking about it because you like I said, you bring an insight to it that allows me to look at it differently. Of course, any kind of conversation on it is good, I think. I think it erupts conversation because it's such a fascinating case. And I'm dribbling out the mouth, man. I'm going to let you go. Talk to you
all right, brother.
On the next episode, baby.
Next episode. Man. See you later, bud. Bye.